Hey folks, John here from Maze for Alcoholics again. Today's conversation is with my old friend Ian Gray. We go way back, at least to the late 90s, and it was great to catch up with him in general. It was great to hear his story and to talk a little bit about the old times, the in-between times, and the new times, and how much better these days really are than those that we shared back then. Just all around great to catch up with him and get some inspiration about being miserable enough to change, and that we don't have to be any more miserable than we are now. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Ian Gray. So Ian, thank you so much for doing this. This is super cool to catch up with you too. To give everybody a little bit of a preface about how we know each other, I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong in any of my assessments here, but I think it was around the turn of the century, somewhere between 1998 and maybe 2002, 2003. And we were kind of on the periphery of friend groups to start, I think. Like I knew Coda and you knew Coda. Yeah. You were in the bowling alley, part of the bowling alley crew, right? Yeah. And so we all kind of interconnected because people like to party, and everybody, somebody's got something here and somebody else has got something here, and work something out. And so there were many nights at the bowling alley, or even just hanging out at the house. You were at the boys' house numerous times. Yeah. So you
went by Naked John back then.
I did go by Naked John back in, because of my propensity to strip down after getting blackout drunk.
They call me Ian Party Favors Gray.
Because you always had the party favors.
Yeah, so it was a much different time.
Yeah. So I've known you for 20 plus years now.
Yeah, 20 plus years.
And in that time, some people have gotten sober that we know, some people have decidedly not gotten sober. And I didn't realize how long you had been sober, that you just celebrated 13 years.
Yeah, 13 years. So
congratulations first.
Thank you. And you just 7 years. So
thank you. Yeah, it's just a trip, because I always felt like me and my friends were the drunkest people, were the highest people that I knew.
Yeah.
And I'm rather impressed that many of them have gotten clean.
Yeah.
So
nice to see.
There's something good about that, when I get a good feeling like, okay, well, these are, and not to say that if you can't get clean, you're not a good person. That's not my point. But I just feel very grateful that a lot of the people that I knew and hung out with and got super high and super drunk with are sober now.
Yeah, it's nice. It's cool to see.
So one of the ways I like to start the conversation is not just, when we knew each other partying together, but as far as alcohol and drugs in your life, how far back did it go? Not maybe just your first drink, but, was it something you grew up around?
Oh, yeah. So it was just acceptable in my household. I was 5. My older brother, I smoked cigarettes with my brother when I was 5. And then we drank wine coolers or whatever that my parents would give me shortly after that, but then I remember my parents came back from California with tequila, and my friends and I, made tequila milkshakes, which is really a bad idea. I don't suggest that.
Sounds like it.
But yeah, and then probably in high school, I just over working steps and maybe therapy, outside therapy, looked at it was in high school, and I took alcohol, beer or whatever to a party, and I was like, that was the moment, that like, I think stuff changed, I was like, okay, I could bring substances to a party and people will like me. And like, I will change by just drinking them, alcohol. And like, I fit into a group,
Yeah.
and like in high school it was a weird dynamic. I was like small and like, wasn't like the top guy or whatever from like middle school. And like, found alcohol, or I found weed first, really. And like that I was obsessed about that, and like that obsession and compulsion started there probably, or
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. I mean, marijuana, and especially in Oregon, is a very big deal too.
yeah.
And so, and we all had our own obsessions with certain substances. So in high school, you find that this is what brings you connection with other people, is having this
Yeah.
stuff and being able to share it with other people.
And to fit in, like I fit in, I
Sure.
found, and like it was like, okay, great, I could go to the next party. And like, and my dad worked for Budweiser, and so like I always had alcohol. Like there's always alcohol, so like I would always have alcohol. So, and it was like acceptable to drink. Like it was all right for me to drink in my household, basically. Like the marijuana was taboo. Like would get in trouble,
For
Like,
marijuana,
I
but
remember
Budweiser.
trucking. I remember I drove my car into a ditch. I had a truck, and I was like at a party and drove my truck into a ditch. And my dad called my dad. He's like, okay, and he got the tow truck and towed it out. But I didn't get in trouble. It was like, oh, like, but so like my dad's an alcoholic. Like most of my brothers are.
Yeah.
But long history of alcoholism probably. So
Yeah. Did you so you're not facing any consequences from your parents at all for your
no.
substance abuse? Like, they are completely, for lack of a better word, complicit in this. Did you in high school, did you face any like legal consequences?
MIPs. And so
MIPs, okay, minor in possession.
yeah.
Yeah. And what comes with that? Is that just like a slap on the wrist? Is that a big deal?
I got one in my 17. It was the summer after we graduated high school, so I was still 17. So I had to go through like an outpatient program, but I had turned 18 by then, and I had already graduated to like meth and like crack and other substances. So, and that's
Right.
like got my first house and never paid any bills, and like it was basically a crack house, and like, and it was terrible, and then that was this, lots of got in trouble, went to jail, and
So is this near and around the time that we knew each other?
no, I was
before.
18, so I was 24 probably when I met you.
Okay.
So
This is the early 90s.
Yeah.
Okay.
95, 94, 95. And so like stuff got really bad in Eugene, so I moved to Portland and then lived with my mom, and then got better, or whatever.
Well, what does that mean? Does that mean you just
Geographic.
quit for a while?
I quit. Yeah, I smoked weed and drank some, but like like my life was better, but I just moved, and then like eventually I moved back to Eugene, and like that's when I met you,
Right.
and like found a group of people that like we all had, it was like I came move back and found like a group of people that like drank, and like it was like cool, and it brought me back to like that time in high school, like.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
and just
now,
like brought alcohol, like we had alcohol, and then I started selling drugs, and eventually got caught doing that, and like went to, had legal consequences,
yeah, because I absolutely, we were all, everyone that I knew in that group were and those, not, I won't say everybody, but many of the people, many of my closest friends were alcoholics, and we were not opposed to finding cocaine or whatever else we could get our hands on. I think methamphetamines for me was something that I didn't do a lot of, but I was like, anytime it was offered or available, or if we were going to go get it, I was like, sure, yeah, let's do it. You mean I can stay up for 16 hours and drink? Sure, let's do that, you know?
Yeah, so like that was always the good thing. So like I had got legal consequences and lost like my license. I got a DUI
Mm-hmm.
on a scooter. Like I was like towing someone on a skateboard on a scooter, and like got a DUI. But then like what I was thinking about last night before, like when I was thinking about us talking today, and like you were living in Seattle, a bunch of you guys moved up to Seattle.
Yeah.
So I had just got my license back, and so I rented a car and planned this vacation, and and so I got a ice chest and filled it full of Paps and put in the trunk of the car and bought a quantity of drugs and started drinking and doing drugs. And I drove the car to Seattle to see you guys. And like, I had just gotten my license back from losing it to DUI. And it was just the insanity of addiction, you know?
Yeah.
Like, here I am, I get this back, and then drive. So I show up in Seattle, just like spun out. Like,
I don't remember this. I mean, maybe there's a reason for that, but I mean, I have a 2004, 5, something. I don't know.
Yeah. We went to a baseball game.
Yes. So this was the Red Sox versus the Mariners.
Yes.
Did we paint our chests with the Red Sox?
I don't know, maybe.
You don't remember that? I remember being in this coffee shop that Danny Klain worked in, and we're getting like grease paint put on our chest to say REDSOX. And we got thrown out of said baseball game. So that might have been the same weekend. I don't know. It could have been a different one, but
we didn't sit together. So I was sitting with some other guys, and you guys were sitting, and we met at this bar later on. I was staying at your apartment. I think, well, we didn't sleep, but like we just partied the whole weekend.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, and you're right, the absolute insanity. And yeah, that apartment that we had in that time, it didn't matter. Like, yeah, there's a couple couches. Anybody wants to come hang out. Especially if you have party favors, right? That's like that immediately ingratiates you to anyone around, especially all of these people who are just interested in getting drunk and high anyway. Wow. Yeah, so now I'm kind of like vaguely remembering this baseball game a little bit. And yes, I was escorted out. So yes, I was a part of a different group, and you were sitting with other folks. That makes more sense now. So in all the time in Seattle and in Eugene, and we knew each other and we partied and all this stuff. And I never had any legal consequences myself, but like I was constantly hungover. It never occurred to me that something was wrong or that something needed to change. As you point out, when you're like, what's the first thing I do when I get my license back is get as high as I can and drive.
To Seattle,
the fucking, yeah, 500 miles away. And so what is the breaking point for you in all of this?
Well, see, I got into still drinking heavily and doing it, but I got into opiates, and like I moved to Portland to change, because that's what I needed to do. I needed to move to Portland. I went to Portland State, and like I was leaving Eugene behind, but then I had this nice opiate addiction, and stuff just got eventually I did enough combinations of drugs that I went crazy, and I sought help. I reached out to my uncle and aunt. I went to my uncle and aunt that lived up in Portland and stayed with them. And eventually I told my mom, and she came up, and then she tried to get me help. And eventually I went into like I hadn't slept, and like I was like it was really bad. I was like
How
pacing
long?
it was a couple weeks probably.
Jesus
And
Christ.
like it was just really bad. And like I lost my mind, and like I sought help though. I mean, like I ended up in a treatment center, and then like, I went to meetings and did everything they suggested, and like, go to meetings, work steps, or get a sponsor, work steps, and like
Right.
with that desperation, like it was just like I was so desperate, and like it wasn't like I got clean and I stayed clean, and like because like that desperation to go back to where I was, like it's so much work to like. So I'm like, oh, I can do this. I can go get a 6-pack of Paps or whatever. But there's like many new drinks out there that I don't know anything about. There's
Yes,
this
there
white
are.
thing that these white girls get all drunk on, and like that looks super fun, but like that wouldn't fill anything. I just keep, like,
Yeah.
what's next, and then
Yeah.
and then, but like, and I found a higher power, and which like fast forward 12 years, I got cancer, and like I no longer, I don't know if I believe in a higher power anymore, but like, so, but
Well, so in those first, just to go back a little bit, in those first days of rehab and treatment and stuff like that, what is so you are absolutely desperate for any sort of help. You have reached your limit of drugs and alcohol and lack of sleep. Um, did you have any resistance toward anything that anyone said to you there?
not really. I was just like, I took
Was that
suggestions, and like I had a good friend. He got clean a few years before me, and I hung out with him, and he got on his knees and prayed. So I was like, I'll get on my knees and pray. And like, I'm like, he goes to this meeting, I'm going to go to this meeting. And so I just like mimicked his routine, like they do.
yeah,
You follow, you see people that like have recovery, and you stick with them. And
yeah.
that's basically what I did. And I made, I changed stuff.
Hmm. I think it's interesting, a lot of us, and I don't know how you felt about God, but I was very resistant to that part of it. Certainly I did not come from the same headspace as you. But one of the things that my sponsor said to me, he looks at me as we're sitting at his kitchen table, and he says, "John, are you allergic to kneeling?" And I said, "No." He's like, "All right, well, let's get down on the floor and kneel." And we go through this prayer, and immediately I was like, I don't want to fucking kneel with this guy and say some stupid prayer to some God I don't believe in. And then I kind of remembered this time of kneeling down on the ground, digging through the tracks of like a closet, like a sliding door closet, looking for Adderall while my roommate was out of town, because I was so drunk and wanted to get high that I was willing to get down on my knees for drugs,
Uh-huh.
you know and I'm sure you've probably been there in moments where you're like, I know there's something somewhere, I can't be out, like just scouring every little inch looking for a pill or a powder or something like that. But and I think that was a moment where I was like, oh, okay, so I can kneel, I can do these things, I don't really understand it, but that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
um and can you talk to me a little bit about your higher power
Yeah, it's just
before and
so
after?
like I wasn't resist. We didn't grow up in a household like I guess we went to Sunday school, but
Mm-hmm.
then my brothers and I were too rambunctious, so we stopped going. And then that
Mm-hmm.
was, and then I guess I went to church with my friends sometimes, but I didn't really have any bad experience with religion really, besides that like whatever historical stuff with religion, but like, and so it wasn't like that big of a deal to like find a higher power, I guess. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, yeah, came up with a God. I was like, okay, it's whatever, and
Yeah.
something bigger than myself. And so, it was weird coming up with a prayer and like stuff like that. And like, so eventually I just copied people's stuff kind of, and then
Mm-hmm.
eventually, I wasn't, and then I was like jonesing or what wanting to use one time and then, or drink. And I like just prayed. And like I crouched down and I was just like, I just prayed, and then like, and then some people called me to go to breakfast and like, and so then I'm sitting at the Glenwood up on Willamette Street with people with like over 100 years of like sobriety, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it works, and like, so
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'll keep doing this, And I
Yeah.
think I had 6 months at that time, and like, so there was evidence, like my sponsor always told me to look for evidence, and like, here I found some evidence.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a good way. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Look for evidence. And I've certainly found it, even if it's sort of this vague notion kind of over there,
Mm-hmm.
it's never been something where, and I always wanted to have this sort of lightning strike moment of like epiphany, and it never came for me. It was always this sort of grind and this sort of accepting things and being frustrated. And where are my promises? Why aren't they here now? Which I know is completely the wrong way to look at it, but um but I think that's awesome, right? You get down, you do the thing, and then boom. Um and when, like, at what point are you committed and comfortable in sobriety that this is how you're going to live and this is how you're going to be? I mean, how long into it did you?
um, it's like I started getting, like I moved to my mom's house, and like so I went to a recovery house, and like that didn't
Mhm.
work out, and so I lived with my mom, and like she gave me money for cigarettes and like gas money to go to meetings, and like you know and I had food, we had food, like it
Sure.
was like and like up until probably 18 months I eventually moved out of her house into moved in with some buddies, and then eventually, yeah, I felt good then. Life was
Oh,
getting back to normal, or whatever normal is. But like, I got stuff back, and then started going to school. And eventually the job I got fired from because I was a junkie or what, I was a piece of
yeah.
shit,
Yeah.
and I lost my job. I got that job back, and like started getting stuff back. I'm like, all right, but and then eventually I got into a relationship, and
And because you are, I think the thing too is now you're just being yourself. You have nothing else to offer but yourself. There's no party favors, right?
mhm.
And to meet somebody and say like, be like, oh wow, oh you like me, and I'm not giving you anything, like that's a big deal.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah,
know I didn't have that until I got sober. i
no,
wasn't i wasn't capable of it, right?
yeah.
um huh.
But that relationship was, well, we had a child together,
Mm-hmm.
and then I bought a house. So I like had a child, bought a house, and then she cheated on me. I kicked her out of the house. So then I'm like 5 years. I have 5 years probably, and then like I'm like sitting in a house, and I'm like I have to like I'm a single dad raising a child,
Yeah.
because she basically took off, and I've raised my son for 7 years without his mom. So,
Right. Right.
but she had cheated on me with my best friend, the guy that showed me how to pray.
Oh,
So
Jesus.
then I had turned my back. Like I stopped going to meetings really because I didn't want to like. Recovery became a weird thing, and like I did eventually find meetings that like were fine to go to,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like that embarrassment and that ego, and then like all that stuff. And it was just like, but I kept going to meetings and like I would pray and,
Yeah.
but I didn't trust anybody. So it was, it
Yeah.
sucked.
That sucked. It does. It's not a,
But I didn't use, it was like I didn't use, and like my life, was manageable. Yeah, like I just worked, made money.
yeah.
I didn't deal with anything.
That's a thing that like, I know that even I'll have moments of in this beautiful life that I have right now, right? I have moments of being resentful or angry or frustrated. And, my problems are probably not that bad. I know they're not, but I think there's a notion of I will get sober and everything will be great.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the case.
No, you actually just have to feel stuff and like, it sucks.
And for so long, it's the inclination is to just get numb, to get high, to get drunk, whatever. And then not having that, you're like, God damn it. But it doesn't mean that we can't continue to push feelings away with other things, whether it be work or food or, all that other, whatever your crutch might be. And so this is like 7 years on, and you have no inclination to use. You're not interested in it. You've reached a point where you go, okay, I have other tools available to me, even if you have that sort of weird relationship with recovery, right?
Yeah.
But
because even like the idea of like sitting down and having like a beer or like I'm gonna have I wish I could be like a glass of wine type of guy, like, but I like the whole bottle or like, but so I do that. So like,
yeah,
I don't understand how people can drink just one glass of beer. Like that doesn't, I can't fathom that. Like, I don't understand that.
I don't. It's been a long time since I've seen you, but I can't imagine you. Yeah, you are not a one beer type of guy. You've never been. We were not that way. We were not built that way. I was going to drink as many as there were until I literally was unconscious.
Yeah.
But then there were drugs to keep me conscious. It was
Yeah.
the perfect system.
And you're like blacked out. Everyone hates you because you just, you're just an asshole. And like, except for like even your friends that are assholes, they're still
yeah
like
basically
too. But you guys, like that's who you're hanging out with, a bunch of assholes. So.
No offense, guys, but yes, that's exactly what it was. And I've talked to some friends in the past, and they like to remind me that there were some good times. It wasn't all a fucking horror show, right? But ultimately, it was not sustainable or even a good way to live.
Yeah, because it always ends up with like me in my bedroom by myself, just like miserable, like at like 4 a.m, just miserable, like in the park, like I'm just by myself. Well, it's always just ended up by myself, and I just like it's just depressing, like it's just like there's no party, there's no like fun. It was just like me in agony and sadness, like, and I could go drink more, do more drugs. It's just like it's over. I never thought about the future really, like
no, not
like,
even a little bit.
Like the Guns N' Roses, like Motley Crue type of thing was like, that looks rad, and that's what I want to do, and so like there was like no, like having a child or like kids or buying a house or like,
I still, I can't fathom that. So you said that in your last year Was it the last year that you got cancer?
Yeah, I got
Year before?
cancer last year, 2021.
Yeah.
So,
And can you talk a little bit about that? And then you also said that's where you had some questions for your higher power.
yeah, so I don't pray anymore. And like,
Yeah.
but like, so yeah, like my friend, she was like, why don't you, cause I've been a mouth breather, and like I have large adenoids, and like I used to, I had, but so she's like, why don't you get them removed? I'm like, okay. And so I asked my doctor about that, and she scheduled, you know, another specialist to look at my nose, and like, and and that I while they were in there looking at my stuff, my adenoids, they did a biopsy and they found cancer, and then there's a tumor, and then I went through treatment, radiation, and chemo for 6 weeks, and it's gone now. But like, so I got put on painkillers again, and that could be a reason why like I have distanced myself from like a higher power, because I was like on substances again medically. I was
Sure,
like,
sure. Yeah, of course.
but like the tree, I didn't eat, I had a feeding tube, and like it was terrible. Like it was like I still have trauma, I have PTSD from last year from treatment, and I was just sad. I stopped praying. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And like, I don't know, like, I'm like, why did, I'm blaming God or whatever for all this stuff, it's like, I don't know, my God is loving and caring, but like, so, but who knows? It could be because I was like I was on Oxy, and like,
What was that like I mean, what do you even say? I mean, at that point, you have to take the painkillers because the pain is too.
yeah, it was, like the obsession and compulsion is like, it's back. So now I'm on Suboxone because I kept trying to get off of the Oxy and I couldn't get off of it. So then I couldn't get off. So I went on Suboxone to get off of the thing, but I'm still on Suboxone. Eventually I'll get off of it. Like,
Yeah.
but it's just, yeah, and so like I've had it, last year was like one of my toughest years in recovery, just mentally. Like, my mental health has been terrible. Like, I don't know if I finally decided that I celebrated my clean day, like I was like, the only reason I was like that was because I had to take drugs, and like,
Yeah.
but like, I was like, well, I'm not clean anymore. But, going into it, it was, I don't know. It's like, no, my sponsor's like, no, you're still clean, like you did this stuff. It's in our literature, so.
Yeah. I think the in a situation like that, I think the big difference is the intention.
Mhm.
And you know your intention, and again, I can't imagine what you were going through. Like, I can't. It's just, it sounds awful. And especially having those conflicted ideas of, I'm in recovery, I'm a sober person, and now I'm taking this pill to to help with very real pain, which is now fired up this other part of my brain that I haven't even used or thought about, or I thought I had under control. And now those two conflicting ideas in my head, right?
Mhm.
But it's not your fault. And it's your intention is to stay sober every single goddamn day for the last 13 years, right?
Yeah.
So like, you're just doing the best you can. Like, it's not a there's no moral failing on your part.
Yeah. No,
You
like
know?
I was like, I felt guilty, like like
Sure.
the intent, like I can't, there's no clean date or sobriety date for like, like my thoughts, like it's not like, it's like, and so that's how I kind of had to look at it. Cause like, I felt like I wanted to use these, like, because it had been so long, like to feel that way, and like, but that's not like, my clean date isn't from wanting to use drugs, or like, it's from when I put something in my system,
Yeah. Yeah. With the intention of
getting high
getting
or like
high.
changing. I guess the changing the way you feel part, like I'm always trying to change the way I feel, like,
Like that's really just a human thing. I mean, I know we like to give, there's a quote by a guy named Mishka Shubaly, who I've had on the show a couple times, and he says, and I'm probably going to misquote it a little bit, what we often give addiction an agency it doesn't deserve, I think is how the quote goes. Because wanting to change how we feel is just a human thing. Like today kind of sucks, so I'm going to eat some ice cream and take a nap. Like that's just changing the way I feel, right?
yeah.
There's
Go for
nothing
a
in here.
walk or like,
Go, yeah. So I think that's important to remember, that like it's not just addiction, we're just human beings, and to be given a diagnosis like you were given is hard, to say the least. Like I don't think that word does it justice.
It was just, it was, like the last, so like it's like the year anniversary, like basically of going through treatment and cancer and stuff. And like I have lots of PTSD right now and anxiety and just like not sleeping, fearing, like going through this fear stuff of like sleeping in my bed and like just super weird stuff, and eventually this last week though, I've kind of been all right and I've been able to sleep in my bed because like I went on vacation 3 weeks ago, and like when I slept in a motorhome and I slept so good for that week, and it was like, and I get back home and I like couldn't sleep, it was like crazy. And I've been focusing, talking about it with people, because that's what they, we talk about our feelings, we talk about stuff with other people, like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't like this, so I talk about it, like that's what recovery has, that's what we have a great life today, like like I do gratitude lists every morning, and I'm just like grateful, like there's like just grateful for, I slept in my bed last night. That's
If that's where it starts, that's where it starts, right?
yeah, it's just, plus like it's so different than even when we first met, or even when the end of like before you got sober, or like before I got sober, or like, it's just like life is so different. It's just
Drastically.
a podcast, like
Yeah.
sitting here talking.
We would, no, this wouldn't exist, man. I know exactly where I'd be. I'd be like drunk with a bottle of vodka somewhere, miserable, probably in my bed, sleeping off a hangover. And, it would be horrible. And I would hate everything. I would hate everything and everyone, myself, most of all.
And this is like like in the 20 plus years we've known each other, this is the deepest conversation, most real conversation we've ever had,
100%.
And that's cool. It's like the problem, it's not like like this is a gift. It's a blessing, it's like,
yeah,
special.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, because you're right. And not that it wasn't, again, not that it wasn't fun, not that we didn't have good times, but there certainly wasn't there was no genuine connection necessarily. It was always predicated on let's get drunk and let's get high. And maybe we were cool and like we could hang out and we were fun, but there was never any how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, it's like, okay, let's get around to shots,
Yeah, exactly. How much money does anybody have that we can get drunk with? It doesn't matter whose money it is. If I have money, I'm going to buy booze and or drugs for everyone because I need somebody to drink with and get high with, right?
Let's go to the bowling alley. We'll drink.
Yes, and the bowling alley. I had a lot of fun at the bowling alley. Again, I don't want to like dismiss it all as
Yeah.
misery and pain. But also the end of the night, 4 a.m. by myself.
Yeah, that's where it all goes. It always goes back. Like it starts with us all hanging out together, but then it's like singularly, we're all just like by ourselves, miserable.
Yeah.
And it's like it's just like the timeline or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like it seems like the timeline of people's story,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
Um,
but it's cool today though. Like we help, like someone could listen to this that needs help, and then like is like relates, and they seek help.
that's part of it. And I've come to a realization that this is also, I do this with and for the intention of helping people, but also it's just part of what I need to do.
Yeah.
Like for me, because I took a break, and I didn't do, there's a couple different times I took a break from, finding people, talking to people. And I was like, God, I don't know. And maybe I won't do it again. And then it was for me that it was just super helpful to listen to you and talk with you. And especially, somebody who I've known for a long time and who I used to get down with,
Yeah. Yeah.
um so in the last year you go through and you've since beat the cancer,
Yeah. Cancer free.
gone, cancer free, congratulations. But it's kind of left a bad taste in your mouth as far as recovery goes, at least because of the conflict with.
Yeah. I think it's just me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm trying to find a therapist that's good. I'm trying to find, I talk to people in recovery every day,
Right.
it's like, I'm not, when I was on vacation, I was like, I could totally just drink right now. Like, I'm like with my kids, and I'm like, I don't know, I was like in the grocery store. I'm just like, I could totally just drink right now. And it's like, not that I did,
Right.
but it was just
Mm-hmm.
weird that this thought. I'm like, well, I can
Yeah.
just start drinking. What's stopping me? And it's like, it's just weird. And I haven't had that
Mm-hmm.
thought in a while. And it was like, I didn't, the thought went away. But like, so what I did is I texted somebody, I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, this is weird, and
Yeah.
help me right now. And so, and because I have loving and caring friends, which I'm sure I could message you or whatever, and you're
Sure.
like, Ian, it's all right,
Yeah.
vice versa. And
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
but
um
there's that weird thing with higher power that like I wasn't like, I might have used to sit down and pray, but I don't do that. Like I don't, which eventually I will get back there, I imagine, but
yeah, I mean, you're still obviously, so you know it sounds to me like you're struggling with some things, and rightfully and reasonably so, but also you haven't renounced anything. You're just like, hey man, I'm not too sure about stuff, and maybe I'll be sure again, and maybe I won't. And maybe this whole recovery thing will morph and change and develop, and hopefully it'll evolve. I keep hoping it'll evolve, like, right, it's not just going to stay the same. It's not just don't drink, go to meetings,
yeah.
which is really important, and you shouldn't drink and you should go to meetings, but there's more to it than just that.
Yeah.
um and
Also,
especially for somebody to beat cancer.
there's
Go
a
ahead.
cool, so I met this guy. Every morning we got radiated together, and like at 8 o'clock we met, right? We went and got to the cancer center, and we got radiation. And then, but now he's 70 something years old, 75, he just turned 75. He has 30 plus years sober. And like, we have breakfast every morning to get together. Like, we have breakfast
Huh.
and we talk. He's like my best friend, and like, because now we have shared experiences of going through, he's the one person that understands what I've gone through,
Mhm.
plus then like, he's now going to AA meetings again after like talking to me, because his life was getting out of control or whatever. Like, so he's found going after 30 plus years, he's going back to Saturday morning meeting, you know, and so, but it's cool that like even through all this bad stuff, like good stuff happened, you know. Yeah, it's like relationship with this, you know, we're completely, you know, he's a retired 75-year-old professor, you know, like, but we bitch to each other every morning about whatever. So
That's awesome. What a great way to start your day, right? Like
yeah.
to sit and have breakfast with somebody who you can relate with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that's huge. Most people don't have that, you know. What an awesome thing. Despite it coming from a pretty awful place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess I would like to ask you one, and I think we've kind of touched on this already, but also I was gonna ask you, what are you struggling with most in sobriety? And it sounds to me like it's the higher power business, but
Yeah, I think so. Like I think I used to struggle with like sex stuff, and
Mhm.
like 'cause I replaced stuff with that. But I think the cancer, the best thing about cancer is that all went away. Like I have no like libido or whatever anymore. And so, and which probably maybe isn't a good thing, but like it's it's a self-esteem thing. I don't like I lost 30 pounds or whatever, and I don't feel very good about myself. And but I'm gaining weight, and so my mental abilities, my mental health's better now. But like
Yeah.
so, but that like compulsion of sex or porn or whatever it was like
Mhm.
has dissipated, and I guess I now buy more shoes, but um I'm like, well, I don't need a girlfriend, but like I buy shoes.
That's
So
fine. I think that's great. I think that's good. Buy shoes. That's a good piece of advice. Well, I mean, so this is all just transit. I mean, you look great, by the way. You look like the Ian Gray that I have always known. But
you look
and
better than the John really that I used to know. And
well,
so which
thank
is
you.
awesome to see. You're an inspiration, really. So it's pretty
Well,
awesome. So
it's a lot of there's a lot of self-abuse and self-loathing that has gone into this. I won't lie.
yeah.
And I'm working on that as well. I'm getting much better with that. To drop weight, because I was always a very heavy dude. But yeah. So I mean, do you feel like, but those struggles, you don't, again, you're not giving anything up. You haven't quit anything.
No.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
like it's just yeah, even going through like it's like I don't need to change, you know, I don't need to get high or I don't need to drink. Like I'm like
Mhm.
at all. It's so much work. It just seems like so much work. Like I could never I would do this and then like I would have to do this and then I have to do that. And like it would just be like it's just exhausting. Like I'm like, we used to lead exhausting lives. I'm like,
Yes.
I'm gonna get done working today. My kids are gonna go to sleep, and I'm gonna sit on the couch and probably put on a TV show or whatever, you
Yeah.
know, and go to bed at 10:30.
Nice. That sounds good. Yeah. And my last question, or what would you, to anyone who's listening out there having trouble thinking about it, struggling with it, wanting to find or do something different with their lives rather than get high or drunk, what would you suggest to them?
To go to, I don't know, just it's hard to say, I don't know, go to a meeting,
Mhm.
listen, try to stop using, but
Yeah.
it's like everyone has to hit their bottom or what, you know, like it's like has to get,
Mhm.
we all have to get miserable enough to change. And it's like, but I just hope people get miserable enough, you know, it's like I hope they're miserable enough to like go to a meeting and say, I want people to ask for help.
Yeah.
You know, like I hope people can just reach out to somebody and ask for help. And
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe it
100%.
clicks, maybe it doesn't, but like they just keep trying. I didn't like, yeah, just keep trying, you know, like don't give up.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause how many years was it from the first time you went to any sort of rehab to getting sober?
Long 20 years, like 15 years.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. But I do like the idea of you just need to get miserable enough to change. And your misery doesn't have to be as bad as somebody else's. I used to think about that a lot. I was like, why can't I just get this? Why am I so resistant? Did I just not get miserable enough? Did I not hit a low enough of a rock bottom? Do I need to go out there and really find my rock bottom so that I will, they would talk about the gift of desperation. And I certainly had some of that, but I just always felt like I wasn't getting it and it wasn't coming to me because I wasn't miserable enough.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily the case. You don't have to be
I'm kind of
horrible.
picturing your misery before you got your life before you got sober, like,
Mhm.
and it looks terrible. And so I'm glad
Yes,
you were desperate, like
it was.
It was. I'm like, oh, that just sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And that's like, because everyone's story is different, and everyone's
Yeah.
like, it's all different, but it all starts with like desperation, like,
Yeah.
and it's like we can't judge each other's desperation, I guess, because we all have ego, and we all want to like be like, oh, my story is the toughest, or like I was the baddest dude, but like everyone was, pretty much on their knees asking for help,
Yeah. Well, and I think I told you too, the bottle of vodka, the very last one, and subsequent ones before that were under the bed. I would just keep them under, I would just roll it under the bed. And so I would have to get down on my knees to go grab this bottle of vodka. And so it's just, then get on your knees for something better. Right. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I was miserable enough. I don't ever want to go back there. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, because like I guess like I never did drugs a certain way, like maybe I need to do it that way, or like, like I never did this. It's like, like it's like I don't want to do that stuff. It's like, but everyone's story is different, and it's like, but we all have. My sponsor always would say, we all have different stories, but we all have a story to help somebody, and like. And and so that's basically what it's about, and like in the process we help each other, so it's
no one does it alone, right? Ian, this is awesome. This was great. I'm gonna message you, and because I don't think I have your phone number, but we'll exchange numbers.
Yes.
And then yeah, man, it's great to see that you look healthy and you're alive and you are doing extraordinarily well these days. And yeah, man, I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, man. This has been
awesome. But yeah, and the bowling alley I still have a lot of fond memories from there too. Is that the phone, Ian?
You bet the desk.
These were inside jokes I wasn't even a part of, but it was just like, it was great to just show up there and be like, is that the phone? And like, everybody just starts cracking up.
Deaf nephew.
All those things. Yeah. I mean, and that's where I met Matt too.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah, there was a lot of fun, despite everything. But I'm just glad that you're here today doing this.
Yeah.
So thanks again, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thanks again for listening. Our music, as always, is by Neglect. You can find more of his stuff at neglect.bandcamp.com.
And you can find us on all social media platforms that matter: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can reach us at aisforalcoholic@gmail.com.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.